So I just want to quickly talk about why design is important in today's world. Design has never been more important through history than it is in today's world. And you would expect that because the subject matter of design is so important in today's world, the designer should be one of the most important professionals in today's world. But that's not true. Design has become so important, but the office of a designer has become less important. And this is something that confuses a lot of designers. Now, if you do not agree that design has become so important, I will state one thing right now. The fact that a design company or a design software or design app development company called Canva is one of the most valuable startups out there today should tell you that the subject matter of design has become very important to the average person. That Canva continues to appreciate in value steadily over the years should tell you that design is important, because all you do with Canva is design. So design as a subject matter has become so important. But the occupation of design, being a designer, is less important today. And this is what I want to talk about. It's important for you to understand this if you're a designer listening in. Because I listen to a lot of designers say, I think we ought to be paid more by virtue of the fact that I know how to design. I think we ought to be paid more. But now the designer is being paid less. He's being paid less. And I'll tell you why. Because there's a difference between the expression and the subject matter. The subject matter is design. The expression is designing. And the person who positions himself as a professional in that expression is now the designer. But there's a difference between this thing, because sometimes the subject matter might become more important, most important, while the expression in itself and the person that expresses it as a professional becomes less important. And I'm going to give you an example of why this is. But first of all, I want to say this, and I want to keep it at the back of your mind. You must always understand this, that today's technology aims at teaching everyone to have the capacity to design effectively. Today's technology like Canva, the aim is to teach everyone the skill of designing effectively. Now I'll tell you why it's a problem for a subject matter to become globally important. When a subject matter becomes globally important, for the first early phase of it, what will happen is that those that can express it get paid a lot. But what happens immediately after, because the subject matter becomes so important, what now happens afterwards is that there's now a move to make everybody literate in that subject matter because it's important. So once your subject matter begins to become a mainstay, begins to become something that everybody talks about, it's now in danger. Because the next phase is, it's so important for life, everybody needs to be literate in it. And then the bubble has burst. Now you who becomes the professional would in time become commonplace at this thing that everybody is being trained to do effectively. This is what has happened to design. The fact that design is so important, people realize to sell a product, you need design. To pass a message, to move, you need design. To activate a movement, whether a political movement, you need design. Design to communicate effectively, to sell effectively, to position effectively. You need design. With the growth of social media and digital platforms, for you to interface, you need design. So design has become a very important subject matter. But don't think as a designer that will make you more important, because the next phase is general literacy. Everybody would aim to learn this thing. It might not be to expert level, but to do it in a place where it is effective, not exceptional. I'll have you know that a lot of people do not live for exceptional. They live for effectiveness. Exceptional is a privilege which a lot of people can do without. So Canva teaches people to design effectively. And for you as a designer, that means you become less important. And this doesn't start with design. All through history, that's how subject matters have been. I would have you know that in the early ages, writing, being able to write was not a thing. It wasn't a thing. Most people could not write. What we take for granted now, being able to grip a pen or a pencil or stuff, to scribble things down, write your thoughts, write your mind, was an exceptional skill. Not everybody could do it. In fact, most of the people in the world could not write. Very early ages, writing was not a thing. In fact, there were lots of countries that people could not write. It was a special thing to write. And then we started to have people called scribes, people who devoted themselves to the art of writing. They learned how to write, how to grip a pen. They mastered it, and how to write. Put ink to papyrus, which was the early paper. And those people were very important in society because they were the only people that could express this thing called writing. They were the only people that could express writing. So you would look for a scribe, and you would wait for a scribe to be free to help you write a document. That's what it was like in the early period. Not everybody could write, but people needed to send letters, communicate information overseas, and put out information. So scribes were incredibly important and were well paid. They were the high class of society. To be a scribe was an honorable thing. But the world realized the subject matter of writing was very important. So what happened? It became something that was taught to the privileged. It started with the privileged children first. They were taught that. And then they realized it was important to teach everybody writing. Writing became a common skill because of mass literacy. It was so important, everybody needed to learn it at some level or the other. And with that, we stopped having scribes. Before you knew, you said, I don't need a scribe. And then you started having people who could write in particular ways that was interesting and attractive. They could write in particular script, in very beautiful script. Remember, when people started to write, they couldn't write too well, you understand? But some people went to go and learn script. So if you wanted to send an important letter, you have to get somebody who was a good script writer, who had the talent of writing in script. It was an artistic talent. That's what developed into modern day font system. But then that wasn't needed by everybody. Not everybody wanted the script letter. Some people just wanted to be able to write and express themselves. And that developed into cursive writing. to be able to write in a more presentable way. And then the world realized how important it is to write in presentable ways. And then we started teaching children from kindergarten how to write in cursive. So the script writer became less important because the subject matter became more important. And then we started teaching little children. And now you see a child today, 5-year-old, writing well already. They're already teaching them how to connect letters, lowercase, uppercase, things like that, write in a line. Has writing become less important? No, writing is even more important than when it started. But you can't say because you know how to write, you become more important. No. Just the act of writing doesn't make you important. The subject matter is important, but the act of doing it, to be a writer by virtue of the fact that you know how to grip a pen and write down letters on a paper, doesn't make you important. In fact, people will look at you and say, what does that mean? I can do that too. That's what's happening with design. That's exactly what's happening with design. The subject matter is important, but each person right now, and it's only going to get worse, design is becoming such an important subject matter that it will be taught at very early age. A child will know how to lay out a design, how to position text and position pictures and hierarchy and all that. So you saying you are a designer will become a ridiculous thing. Is all hope lost? No. The same way all hope is not lost with writing. The thing with writing is writers still get paid a lot, but then you must be a writer. And what it now means to be a writer is not just the art of writing. It's not the doing of writing. It is what you are writing. So when you call someone a writer today, it's not the fact that they can grip a pen, because some of them don't even write with pens anymore. What we call writing is the thinking of words. Just like what we call design in today's world should not and is not about pixels. Is the thinking of pixels. Thinking of what your pixels are like, what you want to communicate with the pixels, what you want to communicate with the art. That now becomes what makes you a designer. That's what makes you a designer. Not the act. It's who can think of interesting things to convey through design. Just like with writing, what makes a good writer is who can think of interesting things to convey through writing. So we must not glory in the subject matter. We must glory in our intellectualization of the subject matter. That's why the future of design is not pushing pixels, but seeing pixels in your mind and organizing it in a way that people would think, how did he or she think of that? That is the future of design. So if you are listening to me today, you are a designer, you are a creative, you need to stop thinking of technical skills and start thinking of intellectual skills. It is your intellect that makes you a designer right now, not the doing. Just like it's the intellect that separates writers from those who know how to write, the act of writing. And that's the reason why design has become a very important subject matter, but the designer isn't as important. Till the designer can distinguish himself not by the quality of his pixels, but the quality of his thoughts, the application of his thoughts expressed through pixels. This is what makes an excellent designer. This is what design in the future is about. My name is Tola T.A. Alabi, and this is the TA Podcast.